This video is sponsored by Full Moon Features. If you love horror collectibles, make sure to check out Full Moon's Tiny Terrors. Stick around for more information at the end of the video, or go to the website in the link below. Good evening, campers, dreamers, and babysitters, and yes, we are back with another new addition to Splatterthon, and this is a Splatterthon exclusive review. Yes, this is just a little something that I think we're going to do when we can fit it in. This one just kind of worked out for us because this one comes from our friends over at SCREAMBOX. Yes, Shaky Shivers. We talked about this a little bit on Sunday Scaries a few weeks ago, or a couple months by now. And it was, obviously right up our alley. It's Bigfoot, it's werewolves. It seemed very promising. And, this one did play for a one night only, limited theatrical release. Nobody real close by to us was playing it. And that was right on the start of Fantastic Fest for us. So unfortunately, we did not get a chance to get to the theater for it. But, obviously the good folks over at SCREAMBOX were able to hook us up with a screener so we could get this review out to you guys, before this hits the streaming service. And Luke, I will let you kick things off here. Shaky Shivers, tell me your initial thoughts before, and your initial thoughts after watching it.
Well, I know, and I think you had forgotten, you had brought this up to me at some point, because I brought it up to you, like, oh, we're getting, like, some poster art and stuff like that, and a little more news. And it was exciting, and I think anytime you hear about a werewolf property, you hope for the best. I think, we have our handful of really great, almost timeless werewolf films, and we're always looking to, add another one into there because they're so sparse. You don't even get too many werewolf films anymore. It's just once in a full moon. But like looking at this one, I was excited for it. I was hoping for the best, because I think you always do with, our love for werewolves and the properties. And then, we got the trailer, and my expectations kind of lowered a bit, because it was always billed as a horror comedy, and looking at the trailer, it was very comedy heavy, and a lot of comedy that did not hit for me. So I was pretty hesitant going into this one, not really knowing if they were going to fully lean into horror, because it didn't seem that way. And then, after the watch, I can really say they more focused on comedy, and it was a lot of comedy that did not hit for me.
Yeah, this was definitely a very mixed, very tough one for me to get through, to be honest, because there were aspects that I enjoyed for sure. Like, I actually did think that some of the comedy wasn't that bad. It's very absurdist comedy. It's very situational. But yeah, as far as just kind of what this was kind of pitched as beforehand, before we even got the trailer, and the trailer, like you had said, really kind of painted a more clear image of what we were looking at here. So, at least we had that to kind of tamper those expectations. Because if I had just gone in after seeing that poster and reading that synopsis, yeah, I would have been pretty caught off guard. But, at the end of the day, I think that as a comedy, it's not the worst. It's definitely I think that the actresses have good chemistry. The situations that they're put in are a little bit aimless. It feels like it kind of just feels like events in this film are just taking place, and there's no real clear direction of what we're doing or why it's happening. It's just kind of like things just keep happening. And it's normally when I say stuff like that, it's like it could be in a good way, where things are just constantly like ramping up, and it's not like that here. It's very much just like, okay, well, we did the werewolf thing, and now we're doing the book thing and the zombie thing, and it's like, okay, we're just kind of moving from like piece to piece, without any real stakes, without any real antagonists kind of popping up until the very end, and it just feels very disjointed.
Yeah, it didn't really feel like there's a lot of tension in here. There are things that they kind of set up, and then they're almost resolved really quickly. And then they kind of move back into, that comedy groove of really is for the majority of the film is a two-woman show in a sense. And, it's kind of looking at the concept here. Now, this could be a very fun, intriguing 20-minute short, but this felt like, taking that concept and really trying to draw it out for an hour and a half or an hour
Hmm.
20 some. And I don't know necessarily if that works, if that's really a justification of, being able to sit through a feature of the concept that they did have. Now you can, but I think you have to offer dialogue wise a little more than just one liners in comical situations. You really have to kind of add in really heavy dialogue and really amp those stakes up, like you're talking about, where there weren't really any, because it seemed like things were solved so quickly, and then we got back to the comedy aspect of things. So for that, I think when you're in those situations of two characters talking and you have that good dialogue, 10 minutes could pass, and then you could realize, oh, I've been in this situation for 10 minutes. But watching this one, I felt myself checking the time and being very aware of me just sitting here watching two characters converse, because for me, again, that dialogue did not really hit, and the situation in itself just wasn't there for me. It just, again, I kept going back to, this could have been a very fun 15-20 minute short, not an hour plus.
Yeah, and I gotta say, one of the things that actually I think worked for me was the chemistry between our two leads here. Not so much at first. There's a sequence in a car early on where I could tell that they just didn't seem very comfortable yet. They felt like they just really hadn't fallen into their their roles. But Brooke Markham and Vivi Wen really actually came through. I want to say about halfway through the film, I did start to buy into their friendship. I actually thought that they were very sweet and very funny together in some sequences. But again, I just think that the movie around these characters didn't do a lot to serve them, because again, it's like when you have a film that is really just kind of aimless, it's hard to find a lot of entertainment value there.
Yeah, and I'll say I think that the two actors here, like, I'll second the chemistry between those two, because although I was aware of the situation, I they did put on a great show. I think those two actors, maybe with different dialogue, it would have been
Hmm.
way more entertaining for me. And again, conceptually, I think the start of this, the grain of the idea is very intriguing. I think you just needed to expand upon it a little bit more, especially when you get to like a vacant area like they did. I think there was a lot of room to play, and I know budget was an issue, but it's something where there's some pretty interesting special effects in here, some practical stuff that me and you had both talked about after we had both watched it, to see maybe expanding upon a little bit more, making use of those practical effects and kind of maybe telling a little bit of a different story, because I think that setup is a pretty intriguing setup, especially just to get you to the place. And then once you're kind of in this secluded area, and especially if you start leaning a little heavier into the horror, and I'm not saying tell us a full-on horror story, you can mix, there's a happy medium between comedy and horror, and to kind of go that route with it, I think we could have been in for a very entertaining film led by these two actors.
Yeah, and it is unfortunate. One of my biggest gripes I'm going to lay upon this film is the practical effects, because you're right. What they show they can do is really impressive. Like, I gotta say, there's a character towards the end of this film that shows up, and I thought that was really good. Why didn't we see more of that? And it is, again, probably budgetary thing, but it was impressive just how good that looked. And then there's in the trailer you see some zombies, and they're very unique. They're very different than your stereotypical zombies, and I like that, and I think the effects look good. Um, but I mean, there is one thing that I cannot forgive. And I mean, as Luke and I have always stated, Werewolves Not Swearwolves inaugural episode, we're werewolf fans. And if you're coming into this looking for a werewolf story, a werewolf tale, this is going to leave you very disappointed. I have to be honest. There is, it's not even the fact that it's like pulling the rug out from under you. There is a werewolf, but the amount you see of it, I must say, because I just don't want you to go in expecting this. So this might be considered a spoiler, but it's just not there. It didn't work for me. I wasn't happy with that. And again, budgetary stuff maybe, but again, the effects they did show looked great. So I was kind of waiting for that werewolf reveal, and it's a big disappointment.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things going into any werewolf tale. You're really expecting to see a full-on werewolf at some point in the actual film. I think going into that, it's an expectation for the audience. So you kind of really do have to sell it because that's what a lot of people are going to be there for. And when you choose to tell a werewolf tale, I mean, you have to deliver in some aspect of it. And I think this one is such a big tease for the majority of the film. And again, conceptually it works shorter, but like when you're telling an hour plus and we're waiting and we're waiting and we're waiting and we never get that, and it's going to leave the audience unsatisfied. And I'll 100% say that I left here feeling unsatisfied. I honestly left here feeling like I didn't see a werewolf movie.
Yes, and I think that that's one of the biggest sticking points for me here 100% is yes, so this does not feel like a werewolf film. And it's definitely, I think, as far as a horror film goes, it's not much of one of those either. This is a very much more erring on the side of comedy with some supernatural elements. And like we said, as a comedy, there are parts that work for me. There's some funny moments. It's not laugh out loud. It's not gonna be gut busting. It's kind of it's an entertaining watch, I would say, for those expectations. But for the expectations we went in with it did leave me desiring more. So I just say go in and really tamper your expectations on this thing. And you might have a little bit more fun than we did. Again, there are elements to this that we really wanted to see come through. I think that the cast, for the most part, are actually really competent. The type of humor that this goes for very much feels like I'm going to pull two films here. One of them you might not disagree, and one of them, if you haven't seen Luke, you may actually disagree too. But I felt it was. Are you familiar with the film The Sasquatch Gang?
Yes, yes.
And like Napoleon Dynamite? It's very much that style of humor to me, like, but light. It's like it's a little bit more situational. It's a little bit more, just kind of going back and forth with each other. Just very odd, like this very odd humor, I guess I should say.
Yeah, and honestly, like I think that fits the bill there. Where I think, at least for my taste, I've moved past that sort of comedy where it just seems like it's a little bit outdated. It seems like, yeah, again, the script might have been funnier 13 years ago. As a 2023, I don't think it necessarily works. More of it. I mean, there may have been a handful of things that I maybe smirked at, but I know most of the dialogue here was met with an eye roll for me, just because it didn't hit. It's not my type of humor, and maybe it is for some people, but watching this and being so comedy heavy, it really just drew out that runtime and really felt like this was a longer movie than it ended up being.
Yeah, and I think that again, for the most part, if you go in with your expectations tampered and you understand that this is not a pure horror comedy, it is more comedy than horror. Again, comedy with supernatural elements. You may find enjoyment in this, but yeah, this is one that I don't see myself revisiting. And I hate to say it because I was definitely I championed it. I championed the tone. I liked what we had seen kind of leading up, but I knew the moment that we saw that trailer that it's like this is a very different movie than I think any of us were expecting. And for some, it might work. I've seen some positive reviews of this. This one, I think, just again had too many sins for Luke and I to sit here and say, I can fully support it. So I'm going to give this one a proceed with caution. I think for the most part, I don't necessarily think it warrants a skip it entirely, but again, I think that you need to understand what you're getting into.
Yes, and I'm gonna go also proceed with caution on this one. Um, Looking at it, I kind of did re-rack my hopes after seeing the trailer, and I thought maybe a film that worked a bit better in terms of comedy and also delivering kind of on a werewolf and a whodunit aspect as Werewolves Within.
Oh,
And
very good movie.
and I think like maybe that's what my expectation became after watching the trailer, but I don't think it really ever reached that potential either. I think it missed the mark for the majority of the comedy. And again, there was no big payoff at the end of it. So for me, I think, yeah, there is a lot of strikes here. I think for someone who does like that comedy and is kind of looking for not necessarily a full-on werewolf tale, but wants to kind of go in with that element, I think this Shaky Shivers could definitely be for you. Especially it's going to be streaming, so it's going to be one of those things where you could sit down and it might be a little more digestible for you.
Hmm.
Especially as you're able to watch it as you're at your leisure, not necessarily a full playthrough. You can pause it and go do your thing, come back, and maybe be entertained for a portion of the film. So I'm going to go proceed with caution. I think there is an audience out there for this. I think,
Hmm.
I think anytime you speak werewolves, we're really hoping to add something to that arsenal of great werewolf films. Just Shaky Shivers did not do it for us.
Yeah, but definitely let us know what you guys think. This thing is, of course, hitting the wonderful streaming service SCREAMBOX on October 17th. So let us know what you guys think when this thing drops. Did this one actually live up to those expectations? Are you watching this as it came out, and then now you're watching the film and you think, okay, with my expectations tampered, I enjoyed that a lot more? Or did this one leave a lot to be desired like it did for us? Just let us know down below what your thoughts and feelings were on it. And of course, as always, just another big thank you to the folks over at SCREAMBOX. They have always been very supportive of the channel here. They're always hooking it up, and we love them. And we cannot wait to do more with them in the future. So definitely, if you do not have a SCREAMBOX subscription, what are you doing? Go over and get one. There'll be a link down in the description for you. But yeah, other than that, we do have a fun collaboration we're doing right now with, Full Moon Features, which hopefully we'll get to show you guys a little bit more of what's going on with that. There's also a link in the description for updates on that as well. So yeah, the Tiny Terrors, hopefully we can get some of those in hand and show those off. It'd be a lot of fun. But yeah, other than that, it's Splatterthon, baby. We got lots of good stuff coming, lots more on the way. At the time that this is dropping, we're only a couple days away from Exorcist Believer. And I actually just got to sit down and revisit the original Exorcist after, surprisingly, just not really knowing if I've seen it or not. So definitely check that out. Let me know what you thought of that video. We still have fantastic Fest coverage. It's a whole bunch of business on the Splattercast channel, and it's not slowing down. So definitely stick with us right here. Hit that subscribe button. And yeah, I guess until next time, I am Dylan Newell.
And I'm Luke Janesco.
And remember, stay scared.